"Rough night?" the driver asked, glancing in the mirror at the stranger in her back seat. She had no way of knowing the woman behind her carried exactly 1/3 of her own blood. 19 days. That was how long Simone Achebe-Laurent had left to prove, in writing, before a board of 9 directors, that her family was stable enough to keep running the company her mother had built. 19 days to defend a word, family, that she had not said out loud without flinching in 29 years. She had $1.2 billion in company valuation riding on a governance clause with the word family buried in it, and she could not have told you, if you'd asked her that rainy Tuesday night, the name of her only sister. She would learn it in the back seat of a rented Honda Civic before the ride was even half over. She would not understand, for 4 more days, exactly what she was going to do about it. Right now, at 10:52 p.m., standing under the awning of a hotel on West 57th Street with her heels sinking slightly into a wet flower bed, Simone was only trying to disappear. The investor dinner had ended 9 minutes earlier. It had gone badly. 6 people around a private table at the Whitby, 3 of them lawyers, had spent 2 hours asking Simone questions that were technically about quarterly guidance and were actually about whether she could be trusted to hold on to her own company for another year. Preston Lang hadn't been in the room. He never needed to be. His questions arrived second-hand now, filtered through allies who asked them more politely than he would have. She needed a car quietly, and her usual driver had texted at 8:40 that his daughter had a fever of 102 and he wasn't coming. So Simone Achebe-Laurent, CEO and majority owner of a company that did $340 million a year in revenue, opened a rideshare app on her own phone for the first time in 3 years and typed in a fake first name. She typed Amara. The car that pulled up 9 minutes later was a silver 2013 Honda Civic with 118,000 miles on it, a pine tree air freshener clipped to the vent, and a 19-year-old girl behind the wheel who would turn out to share, without either of them knowing it yet, exactly 1/3 of Simone's blood. To understand why that mattered so much, and why it had taken Simone 38 years to be sitting in that particular car on that particular night, you have to go back. Not far. Just far enough. Aurora Achebe opened her first hair salon in 1994, in a storefront on Fulton Street in Brooklyn that used to be a check-cashing place, with 1 chair, a second-hand hood dryer, and $2,300 she had saved working 2 jobs for 4 years. She was 36 years old. She had a 9-year-old daughter named Simone, a husband named Chuka who sold insurance out of a strip mall in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and a talent, it turned out, that no one in her family had predicted. She could take a product that cost her $4 to make in her own kitchen and sell it for $22, and women would come back for it every 6 weeks for the rest of their lives. She built the company on 3 things. Hard work. A shea butter cream she mixed by hand from her own grandmother's recipe, written in blue ink on a single index card that never left her apron pocket. And a marriage that, 4 years into the salon's life, quietly fell apart in a way Aurora would never fully explain to her daughter. The salon smelled, in Simone's earliest memories of it, like burnt hair oil and coconut and the specific metallic heat of a straightening comb warming on a stovetop in the back room, because for the first 2 years Aurora couldn't afford a proper heater and used a hot plate instead. She worked 6 days a week, sunup to 9 at night, and closed the shop only twice a year, Christmas Day and the 4th of July. Simone did her homework in the second chair after school, surrounded by women getting their hair done, half raised by customers who tipped her $1 for running to the corner store. By the time Simone was 12, the 1 chair had become 6, and by the time she was 20, there were 11 Achebe beauty salons across 3 boroughs and a product line sold out of the back of every one of them. What Simone knew growing up was the outline. Her father left when she was 9. He moved to Newark. He remarried, or didn't, nobody ever said which. Her mother's face did a specific thing whenever his name came up, a tightening at the jaw, a pause of exactly 1 beat too long, and Simone learned by age 11 not to ask. What Simone did not know, until a lawyer's letter surfaced 11 months after her mother's death, was that Chuka Achebe had fathered a daughter with a young hairdresser named Ifeoma before he ever married Aurora, that he had kept paying quiet, occasional support for years without telling his wife. and that when Aurora finally found the proof, in a bank statement she wasn't supposed to see, the marriage ended within 6 weeks. Not because of a single affair. Because of a hidden second family that had existed, in some form. The entire time Aurora believed she had the whole man. Aurora never spoke the names Ifeoma or Adiz again. Not once, not to Simone, not to her lawyers, not on her deathbed. She built the back half of Achebe Beauty, the half that took it from 4 salons to a shelf in 6,000 stores. On a fury she never named directly, but that Simone could feel every time her mother worked past midnight rather than go home to an empty townhouse. When the old lawyer's letter turned up in a box of estate documents, one line near the bottom mentioned a 1998 settlement of $60,000 paid to a woman listed only as I, Bello, on behalf of minor child. Simone read it twice, felt something drop through her stomach, and put the folder in a drawer. She told herself she'd deal with it later. She was 35, freshly grieving, and trying to keep a beauty company from falling apart without its founder. Later became 3 years. Which brought her back to the Honda Civic, rain streaking sideways across the windshield. A 19-year-old driver merging onto the West Side Highway with both hands correctly at 10 and 2. Rough night? The driver asked, glancing at the mirror. She had a wide open face, skin a few shades darker than Simone's own, box braids pulled into a low bun, and a gap between her front teeth that showed when she smiled, which she did easily, like it cost her nothing. A laminated card hanging from the rearview mirror said her name was Nkechi. Long one, Simone said. I feel that. I had a calc final today, and then I've been driving since 6. Nkechi tapped the wheel at a red light. You mind music, or you want quiet? Music's fine. They talked the way strangers talk in cars at 11 at night. In loose, unguarded fragments neither of them was performing for anyone. Nkechi was a sophomore at Essex County College, she said, studying business, hoping to transfer somewhere with a real cosmetology and management track in 2 years. She drove 26 hours a week around classes, mostly nights and weekends, and kept a granola bar and a bottle of water in the cup holder for the shifts that ran past midnight. Her mother ran a braiding shop in Newark, had run it for 14 years, 6 days a week, and Nkechi worked the desk on Sundays, taking appointments and ringing up product on an old iPad with a cracked corner. You grow up in it, you think you'll run from it, Nkechi said, laughing a little at herself. And then you're 12 years into a business degree because of a shop that smells like flat iron heat. Funny how that works. My grandmother actually started us in the business, Nkechi said, at a stoplight on 10th Avenue, half laughing. Ifeoma. She did hair her whole life, came over from Lagos with basically nothing, and she taught my mom, and my mom's been trying to teach me since I was like 6, but I'm better with the books than the comb, honestly. Simone's hand, resting on her own knee, went very still. There's actually a cream we still make by hand in the shop, Nkechi went on, oblivious, watching the light. Shea butter thing, my grandmother's recipe, older than my mom even. We can't sell it online or anything, health code stuff, but regulars ask for it by name. It's the only thing that's ever made my mom cry talking about it. Some family history there, I think. She doesn't really do family stories. Why not? Simone's voice came out lower than she meant it to. Nkechi shrugged, easy, no bitterness in it at all, the way you'd mention the weather. Long story. Basically, my mom's dad had a whole other family. A rich one. Beauty company, actually, kind of a big deal. You'd probably recognize the brand if I said it, but I'm not gonna, 'cause it feels weird to say in a stranger's Uber. She laughed at her own joke. Point is, I've got a rich aunt somewhere out there who doesn't even know I exist. Half-sister to my mom. Never met her. Never will, probably. It's fine. We don't need it. The light turned green. Nkechi drove through it. Simone sat in the back seat of a stranger's Honda Civic and did the math in under 4 seconds. Ifeoma. A braiding shop in Newark. 14 years running. A grandmother's shea butter recipe that made a mother cry. A rich aunt who didn't know she existed. She was looking at her sister's daughter, her niece, a girl she had never once heard the name of, driving her home in the rain for a $34 fare, laughing about a family history she had no idea was sitting 3 feet behind her in a black wool coat that cost more than the car they were riding in. Simone did not say anything for 11 blocks. "You okay back there?" Nkechi asked, checking the mirror again. "You got quiet." "I'm fine," Simone said. "Just tired." The rest of the ride passed in a kind of static Simone could feel behind her eyes. A pressure that had nothing to do with the investor dinner or the 19 days or Preston Lang's clause. When the car pulled up outside her building, she paid through the app, then reached into her coat and pressed 2 $20 bills into Nkechi's hand through the front window, which Nkechi tried twice to refuse. "That's too much for real. Buy yourself something for the calc final," Simone said, and got out into the rain before her voice could do anything else it wasn't supposed to do. She stood on the sidewalk and watched the taillights turn the corner. Her doorman said good evening. She didn't hear him. For the next 4 days, Simone Achebe-Laurent ran a company under active hostile threat and could not stop thinking about a girl she had spoken to for 19 minutes. The threat was real and it was close. Preston Lang, 49, held 19% of Achebe Beauty through Col de Vance Partners, a growth equity fund that had put $85 million into the company in the round that closed 6 years earlier, back when Ada Aura was still alive and still, everyone assumed, going to run the place for another decade. Buried in that deal's governance terms was Section 7.3, the Founder Family Continuity Covenant, language a junior associate had drafted to reassure investors that Achebe Beauty wouldn't implode into tabloid scandal the way 2 other founder-led beauty brands had. It required that the controlling family member maintain, in the document's own bloodless phrase, documented and verifiable family stability sufficient to preserve brand integrity and investor confidence. Nobody had ever tested what that meant. Nobody had needed to, while Ada Aura was alive. Preston Lang was testing it now. He had spent 4 months quietly building a case, through emails Simone hadn't seen and conversations she'd only heard secondhand, that Simone's sealed-off personal life, no spouse, no children, a mother 3 years dead, a father estranged for decades, made her a governance risk rather than a governance asset. He wasn't trying to prove she'd broken the law. He was trying to prove she was alone in a way the fund found frightening. And alone, under Section 7.3, was arguably a breach. In 19 days, now 15, the board would vote on whether her control should be diluted down to a ceremonial stake, with Col de Vance and 2 allied directors running the company going forward. It was, Simone's general counsel told her flatly over the phone, an absurd legal theory. It was also, he added, one that could plausibly win, because Lang wasn't fighting it in a courtroom. He was fighting it in the minds of 7 other directors who wanted, more than anything, to feel reassured. Simone had met Preston Lang exactly 11 times in 6 years, always across a conference table, always in a suit that fit him a half size too well. He was not, in the way she'd once expected a corporate raider to be, openly hostile. He asked considerate questions in board meetings. He remembered the names of her assistants. He had sent a card when Ada Aura died, handwritten, and Simone had kept it in a drawer for a year before she understood that a man could mean a kindness sincerely and still, 18 months later, use her grief as an opening. His argument to the other directors, as her counsel reconstructed it secondhand, was never that Simone was incompetent. It was that a company worth $1.2 billion couldn't afford to be a referendum on one woman's private life, and that Col de Vance, with its 2 allied board seats and its 19% stake, could offer the operational continuity a solitary, grieving founder's daughter could not. Simone thought about that word for 4 days. Reassured. On the 5th day, she took a car service, not a rideshare this time, to Newark, told no one on her staff where she was going, wore jeans and a plain grey sweatshirt with no logo, and found the shop on South Orange Avenue with a hand-painted sign that read Crown & Comb, wedged between a phone repair store and a check-cashing place that looked almost exactly like the one Ada Aura had rented over on Fulton Street 32 years earlier. Simone sat in the car outside for 6 minutes before she made herself go in. She sat in the third chair from the door for 51 minutes, having her own natural hair, which she normally paid $340 to have done in a private suite on the Upper East Side, blown out by a 17-year-old apprentice, while she watched a woman in her early 40s move between 4 clients at once with a comb tucked behind one ear and a laugh that carried across the whole room. The shop had 8 chairs, for dryer hoods older than the apprentice working them, a small television bolted in one corner playing a court show with the sound off, and a jar of peppermints on the counter that customers helped themselves to without asking. On the wall behind the register hung 3 photographs in mismatched frames. A heavy-set older woman Simone didn't recognize, a graduation photo of Nkechi in a blue gown, and a faded snapshot of a much younger Adiz standing in front of a different, smaller storefront, holding a pair of scissors like a trophy. Adiz Bello had their father's jaw and their grandmother's hands, and when she smiled at a client, for 1/2 of 1 second, she had Adora's exact smile. The same one from every photograph on Simone's mantle. Simone's water glass shook slightly in her hand and she set it down. She almost spoke twice. Both times her throat closed around the sentence before it could get out. 51 minutes, and she left without saying a word, tipped the apprentice $80 on a $65 service, and sat in the car outside for another 11 minutes before she could make herself pull away from the curb. If you have ever sat outside a house you grew up thinking you'd never go back into, engine running, hands on the wheel, telling yourself just one more minute before you go in, this next part is for you. If any piece of this is landing somewhere close to home, that's exactly the moment to hit like and subscribe, because the story is about to ask more of Simone than showing up quietly ever could. Because here was the thing Simone couldn't get away from, driving back across the George Washington Bridge with the radio off. If she walked into that shop and said Adiz's name, if she stood in front of a board in 15 days and said, "I have a sister, a niece, I'm building a relationship with them," it would look, to anyone watching, exactly like a strategy. A documented family. Verifiable stability. The precise language of Section 7.3, solved in one visit to Newark. She sat with that for 2 full days before she let herself say it out loud to her own reflection in a hotel bathroom mirror at 1 a.m. Even if I mean it, she thought, it will look like I don't. And worse than that, how do I know for certain that some ugly practical part of me isn't the reason I finally went? She went back anyway. Not because of the board. She told herself that more than once. The way you tell yourself something true enough times that you start to hear the seam in it. The second visit, she didn't sit in a chair. She waited until Adiz was between clients, standing near the register counting out change, and she said, quietly, "I think you're my sister." Adiz's hand stopped on the register drawer. "My name is Simone Achebe. I think our father is Chuka." For 3 full seconds, nobody in the shop moved. Then Adiz laughed once, a short sound with no humor in it at all, and said, "Get out of my shop. I didn't come here to upset you, I only wanted to." "You wanted to what?" Adiz's voice climbed, and 2 clients under dryers turned their heads. "You wanted to what, exactly? You want to know me now? Now, after 39 years of my mother raising me on tip money and church donations while your mother turned a hair salon into a billion-dollar company using the same shea butter recipe my grandmother wrote down? You think I don't know that cream? You think I don't know exactly where it came from?" Simone opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "My daughter drove you," Adiz said, and something in her face cracked open for exactly 1 moment before it sealed back over hard. "Nkechi told me." A rich lady in the back of her car, tipped big, went quiet when she said the word aunt. "I put it together myself 2 nights ago and I've been waiting to see if you'd have the nerve to actually walk in here, or if I'd read about you in some magazine profile about your family values instead." "That's not." "Get out," Adiz said again, and this time her voice was very quiet, which was worse. "I don't want your money. I raised my daughter without a cent of it and she turned out fine. I definitely don't want a photo for your company newsletter. Get out of my shop. Simone got out. She sat in the car outside Crown & Comb for a long time, hands pressed flat against her own thighs to stop them shaking, and understood, with a kind of nausea, that she had waited 3 years too long to knock on a door that had been waiting on the other side the whole time. 4 days later, someone told Preston Lang about the estranged sister in Newark. Simone never learned exactly who. It didn't matter. What mattered was that by Thursday morning, an anonymous line item had surfaced in a shareholder memo describing recently disclosed instability in the Achebe family structure, including a previously unacknowledged and reportedly contentious estranged relative. And by Friday afternoon, a business trade site had run 4 paragraphs under the headline, Achebe Beauty CEO's hidden family rift raises governance questions ahead of board vote. Lang's fingerprints weren't on either document. They didn't need to be. The board vote, originally 15 days out, got moved up to 11. Her general counsel put 2 documents on her desk that same afternoon. One was a draft non-disclosure and settlement agreement, $500,000, structured as a consulting retainer to avoid the appearance of a payoff, in exchange for Adee's silence and non-involvement in any public matter concerning Achebe Beauty for a period of 5 years. The other was blank paper. The first one solves the leak, her lawyer said. Cleanly. Today, if you want it to. Simone looked at the number for a long time. $500,000 was 11 hours of the company's average daily revenue. It would end the story in the press within a week. It would let her walk into the boardroom with a signed document proving the family matter had been resolved. Discreetly, responsibly. Exactly the kind of documented stability Section 7.3 asked for. It would also mean she never had to sit in that shop again and be told, correctly, that she didn't deserve to be forgiven. She thought about her mother, who had spent 30 years converting a betrayal into a business instead of a reckoning. She thought about Nkechi, laughing easily in the front seat of a Civic, saying it's fine, we don't need it, about the family that had never once needed her back. She thought about the 11 minutes she'd sat outside the shop unable to drive away, and the 51 minutes before that she'd spent too afraid to speak. She put the settlement agreement in the shredder herself. Then she drove to Newark alone. No lawyer. No assistant. No talking points. She left her phone in the car. Adee's was closing up when Simone knocked on the glass door of Crown & Comb, the closed sign already turned, the last client gone, the shop smelling of flat iron heat and coconut oil. Adee's looked at her through the glass for a long moment before she unlocked it. I'm not here about the board, Simone said, before Adee's could speak. I know you don't believe that, and I understand why, but I need to say some things and then I'll go, and you never have to open this door for me again if you don't want to. Adee's folded her arms and waited. My mother was wrong, Simone said. Not for being hurt. She had every right to be hurt. But she was wrong to erase you, and wrong to raise me not even knowing your name existed. And I was a coward for finding out the truth 11 months after she died and putting it in a drawer for 3 years because grieving her felt easier than facing what she did to you. That's not an excuse. It's just true, and I've never said it out loud to anyone before you. Adee's jaw worked once. I'm not asking you to forgive my mother, Simone said. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I don't want anything from you. Not a statement, not a photo, not a signature on anything. I have a lawyer 20 minutes from here who drafted a settlement today that would have paid you $500,000 to disappear quietly until my board vote was over. And I shredded it, because you were right the first time. I don't get to buy this. Silence sat in the shop for a while. A ceiling fan ticked overhead. What do you want then? Adee's finally said. Not warm. Not cold either. Just tired. I want to know Nkechi, Simone said. That's all. Not because of the vote. I don't care what it costs me there. I want to know my niece, and I'd like the chance, someday however long it takes, to know you too. No conditions. You can say no. Adee's looked at her for a long time, arms still crossed, and did not say yes. She also did not say get out. Go home, Simone, she said finally, quiet. I'll think about it. It was not a door closing. It also wasn't a door open. Simone drove back to Manhattan with both hands tight on the wheel and cried for the first time in 3 years. Hard enough that she had to pull into a gas station off Route 1 and sit there for 20 minutes before she trusted herself to keep driving. The rebuild, when it came slowly, in the smallest possible units. 9 days after the shredded settlement, Nkechi texted a number Adiz must have given her. Not a warm message. A practical one. She'd applied to transfer into a 4-year cosmetology and business program and wanted to know, since Simone apparently ran an actual beauty company, if she'd be willing to do a 15-minute call about how product development careers worked. Strictly professional, the text said. Not asking for a favor. Just information. Simone gave her 45 minutes instead of 15, and did not once mention the board vote, the sister, or the word family. 3 weeks after that, she drove herself to Essex County College on a Thursday night, sat in the back row of a folding chair auditorium, and watched Nkechi present a mock product line at a student business showcase, a curl cream concept with a hand-drawn label, to a panel of 3 adjunct professors and a bored campus reporter. Nkechi spotted her afterward, startled, unsure for a second whether to be glad. Simone just said the packaging concept was strong and the pricing was off by about 40%, and Nkechi laughed. The real laugh, gap-toothed, easy. Adiz did not come to the showcase. But she also, Simone learned later, had not told Nkechi not to answer that first text. 11 days before the board vote, Simone's general counsel asked her, one final time, whether she wanted to prepare a formal statement about the family matter for the hearing, something controlled, something that framed the reconciliation as evidence of stability without inviting further questions. Simone said no. She told him she was going to tell the truth, the whole thing, plainly, and let the board do whatever they were going to do with it. In the boardroom, on the day of the vote, with Preston Lang seated 4 chairs down in a grey suit and an expression of prepared patience, Simone did not perform anything. She told the 9 directors that her parents' marriage had ended over a hidden second family her mother never spoke of again. She told them she had a half-sister named Adiz and a niece named Nkechi, that she had found out about them by accident, mishandled it for 3 years out of grief and cowardice, and had recently, badly, clumsily, tried to make it right. She told them her sister was still deciding whether to let her back into her life at all, and that she had no idea how that would end. She told them she had turned down a settlement agreement that would have manufactured exactly the kind of tidy stability the covenant asked for, because it would have been a lie with a signature on it, and she'd rather lose the vote telling the truth than win it telling a story. Nobody in the room said anything for a moment. Then one of the 2 allied directors Lang had been counting on, a 71-year-old woman named Harriet Osei, who had sat on Achebe Beauty's board since its 2nd year of existence, cleared her throat and said that in 30 years of governance work, she had heard exactly one CEO in that room tell the truth when a comfortable lie was sitting right there on the table, and it had never once been the CEO trying to seize control of something. The vote, when it came, went 7-2 against dilution. Preston Lang resigned from the board 8 weeks later and sold his stake to a competing fund at a modest premium. Simone did not tell that story to Adiz as a victory. She barely mentioned it at all, the one time she brought it up over the phone, 2 sentences, and moved on. What she did instead, over the 4 months that followed, was smaller than that. She showed up every other Sunday at Crown & Comb, unannounced but never uninvited twice in a row, and swept hair off the floor if it needed sweeping. She learned Adiz took a coffee with no sugar and too much cream, the opposite of Simone's own. She learned Nkechi hated her calculus professor and loved product chemistry, that she kept a running list of ingredient substitutions in the Notes app on her phone, that she had her grandmother Ifeoma's exact laugh, thrown back, unguarded, nothing held in reserve. Some Sundays Adiz barely spoke to her beyond a nod, and her chairs are in the back if you need one. Twice she didn't show up at all, and Simone sat outside in the car for 20 minutes before deciding whether to knock, then drove home without knocking, and came back the following visit anyway. because she had told herself the whole thing only worked if she treated no as an answer she still had to respect, not a wall to push against. Once in the third month, Adiz asked her out of nowhere, over 2 coffees at the counter after closing, what her mother's voice had sounded like when she laughed. Simone told her. Adiz didn't say anything for a while afterward, just turned a spoon over in her hands, and then asked a second question, and a third, and for 11 minutes the two of them talked about Ada Aura the way sisters talk about a mother, carefully, but without flinching. 6 weeks into the visits, Adiz set a small mason jar of shea butter cream on the counter in front of Simone without a word, the same handwritten recipe card taped underneath it that had survived. Simone would learn, only because their shared grandmother had given a copy to Ifeoma decades before anyone thought to protect it, back when nobody imagined it would ever be worth protecting. Achebe Beauty's own corporate archive, it turned out, had lost the original sometime in the move from the second office to the third. The only surviving copy in the world had been sitting in a kitchen drawer in Newark the entire time. "Your mother's," Adiz said, sliding it across the counter. "Might as well go back where it started." Simone didn't cry that time. She just held the jar in both hands for a long moment, and said thank you, and meant it in a way that had nothing to do with product development. A year passed. Not a smooth one. There were still Sundays that felt like work, still a stretch in the 9th month when Adiz went quiet for 3 weeks over a comment Simone made about hiring a contractor to redo the shop's flooring. An offer that landed, even meant kindly, like a reminder of exactly the imbalance neither of them had fully made peace with. Simone learned, slowly, to stop offering to fix things with money and start just asking what Adiz needed, which was usually nothing, and occasionally was just someone to hold the other end of a folding table. Nkechi interned that summer in Achebe Beauty's product development lab in Newark, 4 blocks from her mother's shop, having applied through the Standard University Partnership Program, interviewed by 3 staff scientists who had no idea she was related to the CEO, and hired on a formulation team that needed a summer analyst who could tell the difference between shea butter grades by smell alone. Simone recused herself from every step of that hiring decision, and only found out Nkechi had gotten the offer the same day the rest of the department did. Adiz and Simone had dinner every other month, sometimes in Newark, sometimes in Manhattan, never anywhere that made either of them feel like they were performing reconciliation for an audience. It wasn't warm, not the way the magazines would have written it if they'd known. It was careful. It was real. Adiz still didn't call her sister out loud, not yet, though she'd started saying, "my family," in a way that, once, without either of them commenting on it, clearly included Simone in it. That spring, Achebe Beauty relaunched its original hand cream line for the first time in 3 years, under a new name. The Ifeoma line, credited on every jar to a family recipe, 3 generations, Ada Aura Achebe and Ifeoma Bello. Nkechi's name was on the formulation team in the internal records, nowhere near a headline, exactly where she'd wanted it, earned rather than given. Simone kept 1 jar of the very first batch on her desk, not the polished retail version, the rough one from the test kitchen, label handwritten in blue ink to match the original card. Some mornings she opened it just to smell it. It smelled like a storefront on Fulton Street in 1994, and a kitchen drawer in Newark that nobody had thought to protect, and a Honda Civic with a pine tree air freshener, on a rainy Tuesday, going the wrong way toward the only right thing Simone had done in 3 years. This story is a work of fiction. Simone, Adiz, Nkechi, Ada Aura, and Achebe Beauty are not real people or a real company, and this account is not based on any specific living billionaire, family, or business, but the shape of it is common. Roughly 1 in 4 Americans reports being estranged from a family member at some point in their life, according to research from Cornell University's Family Estrangement Studies, and reconciliation, when it happens at all, is rarely sudden. It is usually slow, partial, and built from small repeated contact rather than one grand apology. If a story like this one has hit close to something real in your own life, the Association for Conflict Resolution maintains a directory of trained family mediators across the country who work specifically on estrangement and reconciliation at acrnet.org, and it costs nothing to look. We tell stories like this one because the myth of money as a fix is a comfortable lie, and the truth, that showing up slowly, without a strategy, is the only thing that has ever actually worked, is a much harder and much better one to sit with. If this story meant something to you, tell us in the comments, and subscribe for the next one.